point is a chemical resistance. So it should be like resistance to solvent. So this is the main requirement for the flexible substrate to be considered as a substrate to be property of the flexible substrate. And seeing about the flexible substrates, we have 5 major types of flexible substrate. So we can classify the flexible substrate into 5 categories. The first one is glass, so fabric, polymer, GR plastic, and stainless steel. So so each one has its own advantages as well as a disadvantages. So currently the 4 things like the glass, fabric, plastic, stainless steel were out of the field. Sorry. So now most of the researchers are working only on the polymer because it has more advantages compared to the other substrates. So on seeing about the glass, so glass, as I said, that we can make the glass to be a flexible substrate when we fabricate the glass with a thickness of 100 micrometer. So if you make the glass with a thickness of 100 micrometer, then you can use the glass as a flexible substrate. It has a very good advantages, such as it has a very high transparent. So we know the glass is very transparent, and it has a high thermal stability, and it has a very good thermal stability. Everything was good, but the problem with the glass is the mechanical stability. So if you drop the glass, it will start break, right? So it will broke. So that's the main drawback of glass. So that's why the researchers were stopped using the glass as a flexible substrate because of the mechanical stability. And next to the glass, the fabrics. So the fabrics was known for its conformability. Like even we are wearing the fabrics, right? So it can have the very good attachment with the skin if you want to make some sensors, biomedical sensors. So that the 2 main drawback of fabric are, one is the transparency. So we don't have any transparency in the fabrics. And next one is the problem is that thermal stability. So if you if you eat the fabric more than 150 degrees centigrade, it will start burning, right? So there is no use of making some devices on the fabrics. But now there is a lot of fabrics have been developed which can able to withstand at high temperature also, which are used for military applications. And fire people, they will use that fabrics for doing the fire assaults where they met. So these are the drawback of fabrics. And next to the fabric is the plastic. So plastic, again, it ruled the world of flexible electronics for the 10 to 15 years. Still, some of the plastics were available where there is no need of using the high temperature processing. If there is no requirement of high temperature processing, then we can use the plastic. So plastic, as I said, that has a very good transparency, very good conformability, good mechanical stability. But the problem is again with the plastic is thermal stability. So like similar to fabric. So if you heat the plastic to high temperature, it will start melting. So there is no use of fabricating some devices on plastic. Next to plastic is the stainless steel. So the stainless steel, it has very good advantages. Like again, if you make the stainless steel to be 100 micrometer thickness, it will be like flexible, rollable. It has a very good mechanical strength. It has very good thermal stability. Sorry. So everything will be very good in stainless steel. But the problem behind the stainless steel is transparency. So we know the steel is not transparent. It is like a reflectance. So it will have it acts like a reflector. Okay, so it will reflect whatever it has, it will absorb. So there is no use of using the stainless steel for flexible, transparent substrate. So electronic applications, like if you want to fabricate some optoelectronic devices like LED and solar cell, so there is no use of using the stainless steel. And one more drawback, it has very high roughness. So we know the stainless steel, we have seen the stainless steel, so it has a very high roughness. So if you fabricate some devices, so then there will be a problem with the next layer, adjacent layer. So if you fabricate some layer top of the stainless steel, there is a problem between the stainless steel and the layer which was coated above to the stainless steel. So that a lot of issues. So that make researchers to start working on polymer. So the polymer, it has a very high, more advantages compared to the 4 substrate. Like it has a very good transparency, it has very high thermal stability, it has a very good mechanical stability. So everything was very good at polymer. So we also started to work on the polymer substrate. So this is the way how my research started. So this is a literature review which was given by of the flexible substrate, which was reported by Canola et al. At 2005. So I highlighted only the disadvantages, demerits of that particular substrate. For example, here the comparison is between the glass, plastic, and stainless steel. So if you consider the glass, So I highlighted that in red color that the roll-to-roll processable is unlikely. So it can't be used as a flexible substrate where it requires like full bendable or rollable applications. So that is a main drawback of glass. Next, plastic. So the maximum process temperature of plastic is 180. So it is a maximum, I'm saying, okay. So it is not for all the plastic. Some of the plastic will melt at 50 or 60 degree also. So the plastic which are composites, withstand up to 180 degree. Even some of the process will require the high temperature like 200 to 50 degrees centigrade. That is the main drawback of plastic. And if you see the stainless steel, so it was not transparent. Visually transparent is no. So that is the main drawback of stainless steel. So these are the drawbacks which motivated all the researchers to look for an alternate for the flexible substrates. And finally, they came up with the polymer. And saying about the potential applications of flexible electronics, so we can classify the entire applications into 5 major categories. One is a displaying, lighting, sensing, energy generation, and smart system. So displaying like we know that we are using the mobile phones, LED TV. So that is those kind of devices will come under the applications of displaying. And next one is lighting. So lighting like LED panels, like a lot of panels have been started now, but they don't have the flexible substrate. They are, even the LED panels which are available currently in the market, they will have the rigid substrate. So still a lot of researchers were going on flexible substrate because like if you have the flexible substrate LED, it can be easily mountable on the wall, any type of wall, as I said. So even the wall is not flat or not uniform, we can able to stick that because it is very flexible, this substrate. So that is the lighting applications. And one more main research which was going behind this lighting is the visible light communication. That the data transferring of data by use of visible lights. So that is the main research application. But still, that also in research level, that is not like not a product kind of things are available. Still, that is a research was going on visible light communication. And third one is sensing. That is majorly used for biomedical applications like ECG sensor, like EMG sensor. So whatever sensors you need, you can fabricate with the help of this flexible substrate. And fourth one is energy generation, like flexible photovoltaic cell or flexible solar cell. By with the help of that, we can generate some energies. And finally, smart system, like in terms of robotics applications. So like now the e-skin, there is a one more new field which was going on. There is a research field is going on. It's called the e-skin. There is electronic skin. We can make a skin-like structure, so we can attach on our hand or something. So whenever you move our fingers, so it will have some response and with respect to the movements. So we can able to identify what are the movements we are doing. So those kind of systems will come under the smart systems. Without the use of the humans, so we can do something with the help of the robot systems. And this is about the flexible electronics introduction. So now we are going to see about what are the works we have done so far. So the first one is the fabrication of polymer clay substrate. So polymer clay is a peak clay. So we know that clay materials, we can use the clay materials for making some pot or some dolls. So there are a lot of clay materials available. So this is particularly a polymer clay material which was specially used for fabricating the flexible substrate. So again, I'm saying that I'm not going to speak more about the chemistry behind that. I'm just going to speak only in terms of engineering aspect as well as electronics communication engineering. So what are the materials we have used? So first one is the tetraphenyl phosphonium bromide, so TPPBr. And but I will say only the important materials here. So first one is TPPBr, and next one is dimethyl formate DMF, and third one is synthetic sapphonate. So it was imported from Japan. So we directly contacted with the Japan and we imported this material from Mineral Clay Science Society of Japan. So these are three main material, and out of these three, synthetic sapphonate is the key material for the fabrication of this polymer clay flexible substrate. So how we are fabricated? So the first thing is like we mix the TPPBr and synthetic sapphonate. So whenever we are going for synthesis, simply I will say one thing, like the synthesis is like we are mixing lot of. I'm not doing any offense for chemistry people here. If someone is here, don't mistake me. So I'm just saying to have a good understanding for the engineering people. So about the synthesis. So whenever you're going for synthesis, just we will mix two materials with some solvent for under particular temperature, like temperature or some conditions. It may be a temperature or it may be a stirrer. Under some conditions, we will mix two components and we will have some jelly-like structure. Then we will coat as a flexible substrate. So this is the synthesis for all the flexible substrate fabrications. So if you see about the chemistry behind, then there will be a reaction between the two compound under certain conditions, like under some temperature, under some solvent. So if you use some solvent, there will be some reaction will happen. If you use some other solvent, the reaction will not happen. So everything based upon the chemistry aspect. If you see in terms of chemistry, chemical engineer. So in terms of electronics engineers, so we will add the TBBR and synthetic sapphonite, and we allow to have a complete precipitation. So what we require is we want this two material to be get completely mixed. So we stir it for 24 hours. So stirrer is like a blender. So what we use for the day-to-day applications, like it will have it will blend the two materials completely in a good precipitation. So good consistency, we can say, if you are in terms of the application. So we mix both of them, and after that we have to wash that precipitation to have that complete material, that's the sediment. So we washed it with the help of ethanol and water, with the help of centrifuge equipment. And finally, what we have done, we mix the DMF with that that sediment, and we formed a jelly-like precipitate. Again, we put it in a stirrer for 24 hours. So it completely mixed all the components, all the materials what we have used, and it has given a good precipitation. Then we coated it with the help of Dr. Blade method in the Teflon sheet. So here I have to say something, some in detail about the Teflon and Dr. Blade. So what is the use of Teflon here? So as we know that we are using the non-stick pans, right? So it is Teflon coated. So what is the use of Teflon coating here? Means whatever material we are going to have on the top of that non-stick pan, it should not get stick with that pan. So it should be easily come out of the pan. So that is the main reason for using the non-stick Teflon coating. So here also our motive is the same. So just we use the Teflon sheet for easily peel off the substrate. So if you fabricate the substrate on the Teflon sheet, so after drying, it will easily come off from the Teflon sheet. But if you use some other materials like metal or glass instead of Teflon sheet, our material will get stick into that metal or glass. It is very difficult to peel off. So that is a main drawback for us. So we prefer to use the Teflon sheet. So in the Teflon sheet, it is very easy to peel off that substrate. And third one, and the last one is the Dr. Blade method. So what is Dr. Blade method? So this is the method which was used for lot of fabrications. So I will give this a little insight about the Dr. Blade method. So the thing is here, the substrate. Here we mentioned the substrate, right? So this substrate is called as the Teflon substrate, and this is the Dr. Blade. And so the distance between the blade and the substrate will determine your substrate thickness. For example, if I want to fabricate a substrate, flexible substrate of 1 millimeter, so then the distance between the blade and the Teflon substrate should be 1 mm. We have to adjust it. And what we have to do, we have to pour that jelly-like precipitate here, and we have to move the blade from one position to another position in X direction. So then here the flexible substrate will be coated on the Teflon substrate, and we have to allow the flexible substrate to be dried for 1 day in room temperature. Then we can easily peel off this flexible substrate. So here the red color indicates the flexible substrate, and the blue color indicates the Teflon substrate. So on seeing about the Dr. Blade method, now we have two types of Dr. Blade methods. Like before we use the manual mode of operation, now there is an automatic mode was there. So everything can be controlled with help of software, like adjusting the distance between the blade and the substrate and the movement. So how many times you have to do the same repetition, like movements, like 2 or 3 times. So whatever you want to do, you can do with the help of software. It was like automatic. So this is the Dr. Blade method. So this is the fabricated substrate. That's a polymer clay substrate. It looks like it was done with the help of collaboration of ACCET Karaikudi and CSIR SICRI Karaikudi, and we are fabricated. You can see the flexibility here. With the help of this, you can see the flexibility of the substrate and the transparency. So you can see here the transparency, like I have mentioned this peak clay here. So you can see the transparency also. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of this particular polymer clay substrate? So first one, it is flexible in nature. Yeah, it is flexible in nature, as I show is flexibility. And second one, it has the optical clarity. So optical transparency of 70%. So as I said, if you are going to work for optoelectronic applications, we need the substrate with the transparency of greater than 85%. That is a minimum 85%. But if it is greater than 90, then it is very good. So the problem here is we faced first problem is optical clarity, because we started to work with optoelectronic devices. Like mostly we focused on LED, light emitting diodes, flexible light emitting diodes. So there is a main drawback here. And third one, it fails to satisfy minimum requirement, like it has a poor mechanical strength. So like if you bend it more, then again, if you retain it for the flat position, then there will be some little crack started to appear. So that is the main drawback of this flexible substrate. And third one, it is poor resistance to solvent. So if you dip that substrate in some of the particular solvent, it will start to dissolve completely. So then there is no use of that. And these are the properties which limits the further device fabrication. So because like if the substrate is not good, as again I said that the substrate will be the backbone. If the substrate is not good, then there is no use of fabricating device on the particular substrate. So we concluded that this polymer clay is not an ideal candidate for the fabrication of flexible electronic components. So we started to look for some other substrates. So then we came to know about the PDMS. It is a polydimethyl siloxane substrate. So it is a very wonderful substrate, wonderful work we have done in our entire 10 years. Like I will say, like, because like I will say what are the advantages. So what are the materials we needed here? So we used three materials again here. One is PDMS, polydimethyl siloxane, and next one is TEOS, tetraethyl orthosilicate. We can also call it as tetraethoxysiloxane. So TEOS, and third one is DBTL. It's a di-N-butyl tin dilaudate. So these are the three materials what we are used for our fabrications. And I will say, like in this, the key component is PDMS. So there, the synthetic sapphonate is the key component. In PDMS flexible substrate, the key component is polydimethyl siloxane, and we use tetraethoxysilicate for increasing the mechanical and thermal stability. So in order to increase the mechanical thermal stability of PDMS, we use the TEOS. And third one, DBTL, we used here to make like an inducer. It will induce the chemical reaction between the PDMS and TEOS. For example, if you don't add the DBTL in the mixture of PDMS and TEOS, then it will be like liquid for even if you kept it for like a week or month. I practically tried it. So without adding DBTL, it won't have any chemical reaction between the PDMS and TEOS. To induce the chemical reaction, we have to add the DBTL. So these are three main components we used for the fabrication of this PDMS-based flexible substrate. So this is a schematic. So just first, what we have to do, as PDMS, it has very high viscous. It looks like it is very high viscous, like similar to our castor oil. Like in Tamil, we will say like Velakanai we will use it. So like similar to that castor oil. So it looked like it has very high viscous. So we have to reduce the viscosity. So what we have done, first we have to add this PDMS with the toluene. So we added the PDMS with the toluene and we make it in diluted form. Then what we have done, we mix the TEOS. So again, I said that TEOS is used for to improve the mechanical thermal stability. And finally, we added the DBTL. So it is a inducer which will induce a chemical reaction between the PDMS and TEOS. So this is the entire synthesis process. And again, we're done with that Dr. Blade method. So this is a Teflon substrate, the black color, and the blue color will indicate that jelly-like precipitate. And just we coated in the Dr. Blade method, and finally we obtained the flexible substrate. So this is the flexible substrate we have fabricated.
Excuse me, sir.
So you can see the clear image here. The first image shows the transparency of the flexible substrate. So for example, I have printed the logo of ACCT and CSIR Sikri Karakudi in the paper, and I kept the flexible substrate over the paper. So you can see that those logos look like printed on that particular flexible substrate. So it has like 98% of transparency. So after optimizing, we obtained like 93, with the minimum transparency of 93 was being obtained with the help of this transparent substrate. And seeing about the flexibility, it can be rolled like a paper. It looked like a paper. So if I want to say like a similar example, like we will use the OHP sheet for presentation. So how the OHP sheet looks, but if you bend the OHP, if you roll the OHP sheets, if you again make it to be flat, then there will be some damage will be there. But in our flexible substrate, there will not be any damage. So it looked like a perfect candidate for the flexible substrate applications. So this is the fabricated substrate. So next, after fabrication, so what we have started, so we check the thermal stability. The thermal stability of that particular substrate, thermal and mechanical stability was very low for this particular substrate. So we started to optimize, we started to improve or enhance the enhance the thermal stability as well as the mechanical stability. So what we have done, we started to optimize the concentration of TEOS. As I said that TEOS is mainly used for improving the mechanical and thermal stability. We started to optimize the concentration of TEOS. We tried with 4 samples, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So, and we came to know that if the concentration of TEOS is above 80% of the total solution, then the substrate loses its flexibility. So it started like fragile and it loses its flexible nature. So as we are mainly concentrating on flexibility, so we restricted the use of TEOS concentration to be 75%. So what we have done, we decided to have 3 samples. So with the different concentration of TEOS as 25, 50, and 75. So what happened? So when we increase, so we tested all the 3 samples what we have fabricated. So 25, 50, and 75% of TEOS as sample T1, T2, T3. So this is the optical characteristics. So which was obtained with the help of UV visible spectrophotometer available in ACCT Karaikudi. So here you can see there is no significant difference for the three samples. So all the samples have the transparency near to 90 to 93%. So we concluded that so increasing the concentration of TEOS don't affect its transparency as well as absorption characteristics. So absorption also looked like similar for this. So why we choose these 400 to 1200 means, so mostly we are working on visible light applications, visible range applications. Like if you take the LED, we worked on visible LEDs like 400 to 700 nanometers. So we bothered mostly about the 400 to 700 wavelength, but we measured for the entire region. So with this, we concluded that so changing the concentration of TEOS don't have any significant effect. And this is the mechanical stability of the particular flexible substrate. So what we have done, we increase the TEOS concentration and we done the tensile strength measurements. So in this, we can find that. So the first with the 25% of TEOS as 21.06 millipascal and 50% as 23.33 and 75 it has 48.86. There is a drastic change in these numbers. So we decided to work with sample which has 75% of TEOS concentration. So this is about the mechanical strength, and this is the scanning image SEM characterization. So scanning electron microscopic characterization. So first image is a raw image. So like after fabricating substrate, we didn't do any treatment. Just as the fabricated substrate, we done with the SEM characterization, and we have seen little pores on that SEM characterization. And this is a substrate which was characterized after some heat treatment. Like we heat treated the substrate for 100 degrees centigrade for 1 hour. Then we took the characterization. So in the raw substrate, we have seen some pores and holes, but in terms of like heated substrate, it started a good bonding between the material. So the holes and pores started vanishing in these substrates. And this is the SEM images of the side view. So here we can see it forms the layer by layer formation. So the PDMS substrate, what we have fabricated as a layer by layer formations. And finally, we done with the FRT index. So FRT index is the main characteristics when you go for optoelectronic applications. So if you are going to work with optoelectronic devices, so then we have to know about the FRT index. So we measured the FRT index of that particular PDMS substrate, and it was found to about 1.6. So we compared with the PET substrate FRT index also, and we found it was very close to PET. PET means there is a polyethylene tetraethylene. So it is a flexible substrate, plastic flexible substrate. It was used by a lot of that researchers. So it has similar fertility index values to the PET substrate, and we came to a conclusion that this is the best suitable substrate for flexible electronics application, because like it has a transparency of 90 to 95% after heating to 200 degrees centigrade. So even after if you heat the substrate for 200 degrees centigrade, it won't lose its transparency. Because some of the substrate, if you heat like more than 200 degrees centigrade, it will lose the transparency. So our substrate will not lose the transparency, and it has no significant loss up to 400 degrees centigrade. So the thermal stability is 400 degrees centigrade. If you heat the substrate, then it can withstand up to 400 degrees centigrade, and it is flexible nature, reduced elongation, smooth surface, and low roughness. And finally, the fertility index is equal to glass, which was equal to 1.6, which was near to glass, not exactly equal to glass, which was near to glass. And finally, it concluded from this property, we concluded that flexible substrate is suitable for flexible electronic applications. This substrate, PDMS-based substrate. So with this, we stopped the fabrication of flexible substrate, and we decided to fabricate devices. So after this conclusion, we started to work with flexible devices, because we have to prove something, like we have to say something like our substrate is suitable for flexible device application. So we started to work with that. And initially we started, because like we don't have much facilities in the south side for the fabrication of LED and solar cell in the clean room environment. Like if you are going to micro level fabrication, we need a clean room environment. We don't have much facilities. That's why we started with our work with flexible antenna. So flexible antenna, like the main applications of flexible antenna, as I say, will be the military and wearable applications. Like I will give a simple example here. So for example, if the military people is going to rescue some public peoples in the landslide or some snowfalls, so then we can use this flexible antenna. We can just attach this flexible antenna in the shirt or textiles what they are wearing, and we can able to send some signals. We can have establish some communication between the antenna and the base station, because here we are going to use 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So there will not be any problem to transmit data in Wi-Fi. So just we can send some handshake signal, and we can see where that particular person is located, the military person is located. So if he got struck in the landslide, so when you went to recover some people, public people, during that time he got struck in the landslide, then we can able to trace him, and we can able to recover this person. So that's why we say that this antennas has a very good applications in military wearables. And as we know, most of them have came across these antennas, the transmission line waveguides. Whenever you are going to fabricate antenna, the dielectric constant and loss tangent is a very important parameter that will be used for fabrication of flexible antenna. And so this is a literature said that still we can use textiles, paper, and polymer for flexible antenna. So textiles, lot of textile antenna will be available now. Like a lot of people even from South or even from India, they are doing researches in textiles. Like they are fabricating some antenna on jeans or some T-shirts. So a lot of applications are available in textiles. And in paper based, so like they are using the normal paper, A4 paper for fabricating antenna, even fabricating. And finally polymer. So we started to work with polymer. So in this polymer, there is 3 categories. Out of that, we working with PDMS based, because we have developed a substrate. So we have to substantiate the efficiency of the substrate, PDMS substrate, by fabricating some devices. And these are the important properties of antenna. So this is a formula which I used for the fabrication of the flexible antenna. So it was available in Balani's book, Network Antenna Theory. So if you studied those antenna theory, then you know about these formulas. And this is the graph which shows the dielectric constant of a substrate. So what we have done, so this was done, this measurements was done with the help of Pondicherry University. So in the south side, the only Pondicherry University has this equipment. Like they have the broadband dielectric spectrophotometer. Out of that, which we can measure the dielectric constant of particular material from megahertz to gigahertz. So out of that, we measured that dielectric constant of our substrate, and for 2.4 gigahertz, because we are going to work with the Wi-Fi applications, it was 2.4. So it was like 4. Dielectric constant is 4, and loss tangent is 0.035, which was similar to the existing substrate, FR4 substrate, which we are using. And this is the design we have done. So this is the radiating element, and this is the ground size. So I will show the fabricated antenna. This is a fabricated antenna. So this is the front side. So this is the radiating patch, and this is the ground. And in between the radiating patch and ground, there is a flexible substrate. You can see a transparent flexible substrate. As I said that there is no need of transparent flexible substrate for antenna applications. But even if you use, there is no, there will not be any drawback. Even if you use the transparent substrate, there will not be any drawback for fabricating the flexible antenna. We can use the transparent substrate also. So we done with our substrate. This is a connector we use for it, and this is simulation result, and this is the measured result, which was for the flexible antenna. So which was measured in the ACCT Karaigudi with the network analyzer. So it was like minus 25 decibel. Like if you're going for antenna, so minus 10 decibel is fine. That is a minimum requirement we need. But here our antenna has minus 25 decibel, and it has a bandwidth of 0.6 gigahertz. So this is the comparison of the fabricated flexible antenna as well as the measured simulator antenna and measured antenna. So in this we can see the bandwidth of simulator one is 1 gigahertz, but because of the manual error, so difficulty in the fabrication, like we have to cut the measurements very sharp, so everything will come into the picture. So we have that bandwidth of 0.6 gigahertz. So this is the difference between them. And this is a summary of the flexible antenna. We have fabricated a very good antenna, which was for 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It has Wi-Fi, medical, military, and wearable applications. So these are the things which we have done. And next to that is the devices which currently I'm working on. So these are the devices like flexible ECG sensor and flexible integrated circuit. And third one is the battery-free biosensor. So these are the three field which currently I was working on. So what is the use of ECG sensor? Why we need the ECG sensor to be flexible? The point is, so ECG sensor is used to measure the functionality of your heart. So if you have any blockage, or if you have any heart problems or cardiac arrest, whatever it may be, we can able to track, we can able to measure that with the help of the ECG signals. So this is the ECG signals. So whenever your heart pump, it will generate some amount of electric voltage. So we can get electric pulses. So electric pulses throughout the body. So it will be in terms of microvolt. So we are going to measure that microvolt signal, and with the help of that microvolt signal, we are going to analyze. We have to use the signal processing unit with a high efficient amplifier, high efficient filter to reduce the noise and to amplify the signal. And finally, we will get this waveform. So what is the use of flexible then here? So for example, if you see that a report from United Nations has given that like 65% of total population of the world is going to be above 60 age in the year 2030, and it is going to be double by the year 2050. So now a lot of old age peoples will be there. So in order to, mainly we are focusing on old care peoples. So in order to monitor their health, it is very difficult to take them to hospital or lab for every day or frequently to measure the ECG signals. So that's why what we have done, we will design a flexible ECG sensor. We will attach them in the hand, and we can able to monitor their health problems with the help of our mobile phones. So with the help of mobile phone, we can see the status of their health. If something goes wrong, then immediately you can make a call to some of the person who was near to them and ask them to take to hospital or lab. So that is the main motive behind this project. This was it was an industry collaborated project. I can't able to share more details of this project, as we are working for an industry to integrate ECG sensor and temperature sensor in a single flexible substrate. So single device which measures the temperature of your body, as well as it will measures the ECG of your body. So this is a thing. And seeing about the literature of that flexible substrates. So still we have like 24 minutes. So I will complete as soon as possible. So if you consider this, we can classify the ECG sensor based on the electrodes. So first one is a wet electrode and dielectrode. In dielectrode, we have a lot of subcategories. So what is I will going to highlight only the electrodes which we are using now. So first one is wet electrode. So what are the problem with wet electrode? So if some of them have came across the ECG measurements, in hospitals, then you can know about this electrode. So this is like a rigid electrode, first one. Next one, to measure this ECG sensor. So what are the problem we have that they will apply some kind of gel over your body. So first what they will do, they will remove the air over the place, then they will apply some gel, then they will place this sensor over the gel. So with the help of the gel, we can able to measure, we can see the ECG graph in that output monitor. So what are the drawback? First one is your skin preparation. So your skin should be smooth. If it is rough, then it is very difficult to measure. So we have to remove the skin. We have to remove the hair. Sorry. So then we have to make the skin to be smooth. And then we have to apply the gel. So second problem is applying the gel. So the gel that is not suitable for all kind of persons. Some persons have the skin irritation or allergy because of that gel. So that is the second drawback. And the third drawback is the gel will start evaporating. So if the gel start evaporates, then the connection between the electrode and the body will start degrades. So then the signal will not, we don't have that high efficient signal. So that is the main drawback of using these sensors. So then in order to provide some solution to these sensors, so dry electrodes have been emerged. So these are the dry electrodes. So this is the electrode, this is a sensor which look like. So we have the flexible substrate. About the flexible substrate, we have the metal deposition. So we have done with the help of gold. Actually, we have fabricated the ECG sensor with the help of gold, because like if you take the metals, gold and silver are the two metals which has a very high conductivity, because here the conductivity matters. So as I said that it will be in the terms of microvolt signal. We have to capture that microvolt signal. So our device should be better efficient to measure that microvolt signal. So we are used to gold. So if you use the silver, it will get easily oxidized with air to form silver oxide. So again, there will be drawback. So that's why we go with gold. So what are the advantages? So it is flexible. So we can mount on any place on our body. Like even in your hand, you can mount, or if you want, you can mount in your legs, wherever you want, you can do it. And skin preparation is not needed. So that's the main advantages, and there is no need of gel here. So these are the things made that these dry electrodes to be a better one. So I will we will go here. So how we are going to fabricate these ECG sensors. So I will give, this is the first time I was discussing these topics with anyone. So I will give a brief about how the fabrication process will be. So you can imagine how the fabrication is going on in the places. The first one, whenever you're going to design some sensor, with first thing we need a Gerber file, so of that particular sensor, because like we are going to work here with a range of 50 micrometer thickness. For example, this is the sensor we have designed. So the first one, most of them can have that familiar with this design. Like this is the normal column, like our mothers used to put out in front of our home. So this is the I got inspired with that column design. So I use the same column design for the fabrication of ECG sensor. Why we need this type of designs? For example, if you want to do the device to be stretchable, then this type of design will expand up to 75%. So if you stretch the entire device to 75%, then there will not be any break in the connection, or there will be no short circuit. That's why we design this design. This design will be called as the serpentine design. So like serpentine means like you see a snake. If the snake was moving from one place to another, it will follow some zigzag path. So that path will be called as a serpentine designs. So this is the one more sensor, normal sensor, which we design for comparison purpose. So this is the sensor. So if you take the width of this particular line, the width is about 50 micrometer. So if the thickness is 50 micrometer, it is very difficult to deal with naked eyes, right? So what we have to do, we have to design this design with the help of AutoCAD. So with the help of any CAD tool, so in which you are very familiar. So I am familiar with AutoCAD. So I decided to choose with AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, we have done these two designs, and we export this design in terms of Gerber file. So that is the first thing we have to do. And the second step is clean room fabrications. So like if we are going to fabricate some micro level or nano level devices, then the clean room fabrication is very important, is mandatory, I will say. So here we are using class 1000. Here the class 100 is also there. So what is class 1000? So simply I will define that. For example, if you take the general environment, so where we are living, it will have 1 million of particles in a square feet. In a particular square feet, it will have 1 million of nanoparticles, but in clean room, it will have only 1000. So you can see how clean is the clean room. So it will have only 1000 particles per square cubic area. So it will be like very less particles. So the contamination will be very less in the clean room. Even we have the clean room like class 100. So if you go for class 100 clean room, then it states that we have only 100 nanoparticles in the square cubic area, in the cubic area. So that's a very, very, like if you're going for some defense applications or some company oriented products, then which requires that high like efficiencies, high purity. So then we can go for class 100 type of clean room fabrications. But here we have fabricated this for class 1000. And in the class clean room, this is the clean room. So I will show the clean room. So this is the clean room which we will work. So like it has the yellow light color because to prevent the UV light, so we use this type of yellow color lights here. Inside the clean room, all the equipments will be there. And this is obviously me. Before going into this clean room, we have to wear this kind of suits. Like, so we have to like cover ourselves fully. Like even for eyes, we have to use the goggles. So there is no permission to take your laptops or any paper, notebooks inside the clean room. We can take only our mobile phones, but that should be cleaned and it should be covered in a cover. So they will have some special type of cover. So we have to put the mobile phone inside the cover and we have to close it. Then only we can use it inside that clean room. And what is the next step? So first step is we have to have the flexible substrate. I told how to fabricate the flexible substrate. Next, we have to do some surface modification. So what is the use of surface modification here is to have a good bonding between the anode layer, which we are going to deposit over the flexible substrate, or metal layer. So whatever layer we are going to deposit over the flexible substrate, it should have some good bonding. So that's why we are going for surface modification. And what is the surface modification we are going to do is, first one is UV treatment or oxygen plasma treatment. So these are the treatments which, like this treatment is like we are going to expose our flexible substrate in UV light for 30 seconds, or we can do the oxygen plasma treatment with help of oxygen for 1 minute. So this is a surface treatment we have to carry out. And then we have to, here we are going to work with lithography technique. So for example, if you want to fabricate this pattern, so we have to first design this pattern in the flexible substrate, then we have to deposit the gold materials. So for this, first we have to design this pattern in the flexible substrate. So what we have to do, we have to make some mask. Before to the maskless lithography, we have to make some mask for the particular devices. So what is the drawback of making mask is, for each particular device, we have to make a particular mask. It was very expensive. But now in RMIT, we have a maskless lithography, so in which they don't require any mask. So what we have to do, we have to spin coat the photoresist. So our flexible substrate will be there. About to the flexible substrate, we have to spin coat the photoresist. We have certain standard parameters for spin coating also. So then what we have to do, we have to keep that spin coated flexible substrate in the maskless lithography, and we have to load this Kerber file. So based on this Kerber file, this lithography will have a laser, so UV exposure beam. So that UV beam will write the pattern over the photoresist, like like a drawing. So like what we are do the drawing, like with the blackboard, we are using the chalk to put some drawing. The same thing in the photoresist substrate, it will use the UV light to make some pattern, what the pattern we are given in as an input. So after that, we will place the substrate in electron beam evaporation, and we start depositing the metal. So this is the electron beam evaporation method. So most of them may have some idea about it. So I'm going to give some brief about this for the people who don't have much idea in this. So what we have, this is the chamber, so in which we are going to have the metal. this blue color vacuum chamber. So this is like, we can say this is a crucible. Like we will have the different type of crucible we have. So in the crucible we will put the metal what we are going to deposit, and with the help of electron gun we will melt that metal. So after melting that metal, so due to the uh, like difference in the potential, so that gold metal started evaporating and it will get deposited in the substrate which we kept it here. So the substrate, that metal will be in the down and substrate will be in the top. So it will be in this structure. So from the down it will start evaporating and it will get deposited in the substrate which we kept it in the top. So it has crystal thickness monitor. For example, if here we are going to work in terms of nanometers. For example, if you're going to deposit gold, we will deposit the gold of 200 nanometers. So we have to measure the thickness of the gold. So we use the crystal thickness monitor, which have a quartz crystal. So the same material what we are depositing here will get deposited here also. So when it reaches the particular limit, automatically it will stop the entire process. So this is the electron beam evaporation unit. And finally, we have to remove the photoresist. So what we have done now, so we have the substrate, we deposit the photoresist, we have done some pattern, and we deposited the metal electrode. So wherever the pattern we drawn, so that the metal electrode will be deposited, and remaining will be like photoresist. So what we have to done, we have to dip that entire substrate in acetone. Acetone is the basic thing we use for a lift-off process. So all this photoresist will come off with the gold, which was deposited over that area. So what are the patterns will remain there. So that is the one. And finally, we have to do the encapsulation. So encapsulation we will do with the help of, again, the same PDMS with minimum thickness, we will do it. So this is about the encapsulation. So this is the fabricated ECG sensor. The total thickness is 2 centimeter cross 2 centimeter. So this is the first ECG sensor we have fabricated. And this is the area which we will use for contact. So this round circle will be used for the contact purpose. So, and this is the one most normal sensor which we have fabricated. So everything was fabricated in a flexible substrate with the help of gold metal. So these are the two type of ECG sensor we have fabricated. And wait, I will show a video. I have a video of that. Can you able to see this video? So this is the flexible ECG sensor we have fabricated. So the size of the device was 2 × 2. This entire structure, this is the things which used for contact. So I will play again. So just have a look. So you can see how flexible it is. Like even with, it can be rollable. It has a very good flexibility. So this is the testing setup we are used to. So how we will test the sensors, like so after placing the electrode in our hand, we will pass the signal into a preamplifier. So as we are electronics engineers, we know that. So use of preamplifier is to amplify both the noise as well as the signals. Then we are giving that to a filter module, so which will remove all the noises, and then again we are doing the post amplifier, so it will amplify only the signal. And finally, we have to convert into digital format for wireless transmission. So here we are done with the help of Bluetooth transmissions to see in the help of PC or mobile phone, whatever you want, you can use that. And this is the testing of ECG sensor. So this is the general testing method. This is not the testing method which we use, just the general testing method to show you. So we have two ECG sensors. From this, we are given to a preamplifier, filter, post amplifier. Then we are seeing this with the help of a monitor. There is a thing, or else we can use with the help of laptop also, we can see this. So this is the what we have done. And next to that, it is a flexible integrated circuit. So still 10 more minutes, 8 more minutes is that. So I will try to wind up this. So in flexible integrated circuits, as I said, we are electronics engineers. So what is the main use of flexible integrated circuit is that we have a plan to have the entire motherboard in terms of flexible substrate, flexible device. Like by using the flexible substrate and fabricating all the motherboard components over the flexible substrate, we can able to achieve the flexible integrated circuit. So initially we tried with RLC circuit, resistor, inductor, capacitor circuit. So how we have to fabricate the particular components. So this is the design which we use for inductor. So as we know, inductor is a current coil, carrying coil. So this is a formula which we use for theoretical support. So first we have to calculate the dimensions of width, distance between the two rods, and what is the DI, what is the D naught. Everything should be calculated with the help of this formula. And for example, if you want like it depends, like it depends upon the application. So if you want the inductor to be have like more value for some applications, then we have to design in such a way. So number of turns, so number of this will be called as a single turn. So if the number of turns will increases for applications, and this is the inductor design we have done. So here we tried with two different designs. One based upon this width of the track and distance between these tracks, S, W and S. So in this you can see the S is lesser than W, and here you can see W is equal to S. So we tried with two different designs to check how the values are that. So next, the resistor. So we know the general formula R equal to rho L by A. So here the rho is the resistivity of the particular material what we are going to use. Here we are going to try with silver. So I decided the resistivity of silver is 1.58. So you can ask why we are going for silver here. Here that we have to, first thing we have to minimize the cost of that entire circuit. And next thing, here there is no need of like measuring the very low voltage signals. Like in ECG we are going to measure the microvolt signals, but here there is no use of that microvolt signals, measuring the signals. So we thought to go with silver, and this is the formula we used, and this is the design we have tried. So again we tried with some serpentine designs. So the problem with silver is, like, if you increase the ohms, then the size of the device started to increase more. For 30 ohm, we have only 4 windings, and 50 we have like 7 windings. But in 200 ohm, it have like more than 15 windings. So again, we are looking for different materials, so which have this road very less resistivity. So if the resistivity less, then the length will be less. So that's why we are working on this application. And finally, capacitor. The same thing, capacitor. Sorry, capacitor. It's a 2 dielectric metal plate separated by a flexible substrate. So we have the flexible substrate. So this time, in this left side also we will deposit a silver patch. In right side also we will deposit a silver patch. So it will be act as a capacitors. By integrating these capacitors, first initially what we have tried, we tested the components separately, and we are going to test all the components. We are going to fabricate all the components in a single flexible substrate, and we are going to test. But still, it is in testing. As the labs are closed because of this pandemic, so we are working from work from home, doing the work from home. So still, it is in testing. And finally, so what I want to show you is a very important topic, as is a current technology which is going to boom like a very significant manner. Like it's battery free. So whenever you go, you take the sensor. The main drawback of the sensor is battery. So because like we want to use a rechargeable battery, and we have to do the recharging. We have to recharge the battery again and again. So if you recharge, then the device will be dead. That's a drawback. So not working this, we are using new technology. That there is a technology is called NFC, near field communication. So here, actually, in the +2 physics, we have studied about the that mutual inductance coupling. So the changes in one coil, current in one coil will induce some magnetic field, or will induce some changes in the another coil. So that based on this principle, we designed a NFC communication chip. So this is the NFC chip we used. So this is the sensor we have fabricated, and this is the antenna. This is the loop antenna, and this is the micro components. So these components will be obtained from the surface mount technology of 0402 footprint. So 020402 is like the device will have a size of 1 mm length 0.6 mm thick, 0.6 mm width, and 0.15 mm height. So you can see how miniature the device is. So those devices were available in the market, and this is the sensor we are trying to fabricate. Like here, we are going to measure some oxygen content in the blood. So for each content of oxygen, the light will react. For example, if the oxygen content is more, the absorption of light will be more. If the oxygen content in your blood is less, then the absorption of light will be very less. So what we are going to do, the principle, we are going to emit some light. The light will get reflected from by the blood, and if the oxygen content is more, the more amount of light will be absorbed by the blood, and the less amount will be reflected in the photodiode. So by measuring the content of light received by the photodiode, we can able to analyze how much of oxygen content is available in your blood. So this is the research we started, and still it is going. And these are some of the devices reported based on NFC communication principle. Like so you can see the device structure. So it was very small. It's a miniature devices. So this is the setup. It has a source, director, amplifier. So the source was controlled by a microcontroller, and we have the NFC chip, which has the antenna. So through this antenna, we can transmit, and there is no battery in this particular setup. So how this circuit will work means the power for the entire circuit will be harvested by the antenna. So it will this antenna will get the power from the supporting antennas or supporting my NFC reader. And the power which was harvested by the antenna, so it will work. So this is about the battery free wearable sensor, and this is my. So any doubt? So do you have any doubts?
Sundar, one doubt is asked by Devapriya. Devapriya, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello.
So after final slide.
Devapriya, ma'am.
Acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge a few of the professors who played a major role in my life. First, Dr. Sivananda is my guide. Now he's a HOD of EC Department of Engineering Technology. So I'll say like he's one of the main reasons for who I am now. So to work with electronics, he helped me a lot, and I completed my PhD, master and PhD under his guidance, and now working as a very good research institute. So I like to thank and I like to thank the scientists. We have done a collaboration of this work with Dr. D. Jayakumar and Dr. E. Sanjeevi Raja sir. So they both are helped me a lot. Apart from my guide, they both are like my PhD guide. So they supported me, and they help. Still, they are helping me in all my careers. And I'd like to thank Dr. L. Ganesan sir, who is a former HOD of CSCAC Tech Karaikudi. So a well-wisher. And I'd like to thank my current mentor, Professor Marcus Flores from University of Chile, and Sharath Sriram from RMIT University, and Madhu Bhaskar from RMIT University. And I'd like to thank some of the universities like ACCT Karaikudi, University of Chile, Santiago, SICRI Karaikudi, and Functional Materials and Systems Australia. So for supporting this research. So thank you all. So if you have any doubts, or if you want to start any research in terms of flexible electronics, or if you need any support, so you can just mail me. So this is my mail ID. So dshanmugasundar@gmail.com. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the chat session also, or you can just send a mail also regarding this. And one more information, like a participant asked before commencement of the session to share this PPT. I will share with the group, like a organizing committee, because I can't able to share all the information because we are working with industry, as some of the work were not yet published. So I will share the important works with you. So do you have any doubts? Okay. So one more thing, I like to thank Syed Akbar, HOD of this college, and Kirtana, coordinator for this session, for arranging this opportunity, for giving this opportunity to me. So I had a very good session, I think so. Like because like we are working with due to this pandemic, we are in the room and we are working in work from home. But after this, I have seen a lot of people here. So thanks for this opportunity for Kirtana as well as Syed Akbar. I'm very proud to say that Syed Akbar is my senior and Kirtana is my student. So I'm very proud of them, of both. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or we can wind up the session.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you. Geertana madam.
Yes, sir.
You can call Kavita ma'am. Kavita ma'am.
Yes, I'm sure. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are audible, ma'am.
Okay.
Participants, is by anybody having any query? Participants. You may proceed, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone joined here. I hope you all enjoyed this session, and this session will be definitely an eye-opening session for the researchers working in the field of flexible electronics, because he touched upon more topics where we can work here. So definitely this session will be useful for us. On this occasion, on behalf of AC Department, K. Ramakrishnan College of Technology and IEEE Student Branch, I render my sincere thanks to Dr. Sanma Sundaram for spending his valuable time with us. Thank you, sir. Also, I thank our HOD, Professor Syed Akbar, and coordinator of this program, Ms. Kirtana, for arranging this valuable webinar session. Also, I thank all the participants for joining with us. Thank you. Thanks to one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Sundar?
Sir, provide speaker's contact number.
Sundar?
What happened?
Ma'am?
What happened?
Uh,
Whether he has left from this meeting?
yeah, ma'am, yeah. I think
Then
resource
you,
was
then if you want to convey about any feedback form, just inform and close the session.
okay, ma'am. Geertana, ma'am.
Sir?
Just wind up the session, ma'am.